Hello everyone, my name is Bhavna Singh. I am working as an assistant professor at St. Andrews Institute of Technology and Management, Gurgaon. This is an online tutorial on software engineering. So let's begin with today's session. Students, in today's session, we will discuss all these topics of Unit 3. That is, the first one is what is a function-oriented design? What are the various strategies of function-oriented design like DFD, data dictionary, structure chart? Then we'll discuss about object-oriented design and its basic strategies like what is a class, what is object, what is inheritance. And at the end, we will talk about advantages and disadvantages of object-oriented design. So let's start with today's session. Now the first topic is what is a function-oriented design? Function-oriented design is an approach to software design where the design is decomposed into a set of interacting units where each unit has a clearly defined function, and these functions are capable of performing significant tasks in the system. The system is considered as top view of all functions. That means in function oriented design, what we do, we decompose the entire system into small units, or you can say the small modules, and these each module they have their clearly defined function and they perform their intended function. So the system is designed from a functional viewpoint, you can say. And when these functions when these functional modules they want to share information, they can share it by passing information or by passing the parameters which are shared globally as well as the local variables. And we can also say that this function oriented design, it is an approach in software designing where the entire system is you can look upon it as something that performs a particular set of functions, and all the functions or all the modules, they are the interacting units, and each of these units they have a clearly defined functions. Now this is how we do the designing process in case of these function oriented process. The entire system, it is logically broken down into smaller units known as functions on the basis of their operations in the system. And as you see in this diagram also, we have a system which is broken down into two units, and these two units they are further broken down into other two units. So like this we keep on decomposing every module, and we start with a high level description of what the software or you can say the program does, and then at each level we refine each part of the description one by one by specifying all the details of the functionality of every part. And then we like this we follow the top down structure and refine each part as we come down level by level. Like at the first level we perform the functionality, then at the second level we perform all the functionality, and at the lower level we perform all the functionality. So this is how the entire process goes on. Now these are the basic elements, or you can say the basic strategies for creating the function oriented design. The first one is data flow diagram, that is DFD. The second is data dictionary, pseudocode, and the fourth one is structure chart. Data dictionary and DFD we mainly use when the system engineers they create the database for the entire system and for maintaining all the records regarding the development process and regarding the customer details and regarding the product details. So all these data dictionary and DFD mainly are used that how the process is entirely goes on inside the system. So for maintaining database and for maintaining the repositories, these data dictionary and DFDs are used. And the structure chart we maintain basically that how we are decomposing or how we are breaking down the entire module into small modules. In that we use the structure chart. And then the pseudocode is used when we want to write some English phrases, and so that we will be able to convert it into some technical languages at the time of implementation. So we will discuss each one of them in detail one by one in the coming slides. Now first of all we will talk about data flow diagram, that is DFD. What is DFD? It is the diagrams which depict the flow of data through the system. It is the diagram which express system requirements in a graphical form. It is very useful in understanding a system. It can be effectively used during analysis. That means we are discussing about the flow of information inside the system, that how things are going inside a system. It describes all the processes that are involved in the system to transfer that data from one input, and it then stores it into the file storage. And in very complex cases, it also sometimes generates the report on the basis of that data that we have already stored. And DFT graphically represents all the functions, all the processes which captures, or you can say which store and distribute these data between the system. And the system can be any company or any organization, and this DFT, it represents all the processes and all the operations that are going inside a system, that how the input the user is that the user is providing is converted into a particular output, and how all the things are going inside that system. So all these things that are represented inside the system is known as depicted by the DFT, that is data flow diagram. Now, while creating data flow diagrams or while representing the information graphically, we use certain symbols, and these symbols are, first one is square. This symbol is used to represent the source or the destination of the data. Means we use the square symbol to represent the source from where the input is coming. Then second one, we have arrow, which is used to identify the data flow. That means from where the data is coming and from where to where it is going, it is shown by the arrow. Then the third one, we have circle, or you can say bubble. This circle is used to represent a process. Process means that which is converting the incoming data into the outgoing data. So it can be represented by a circle, or you can say a bubble. Then we have open rectangle. Open rectangle represents the data storage, from where our output is storing, from where our result is storing. So all these symbols, they are making the entire DFT, and they represents the information flow that is going on inside the system. Now these are the graphical representation of all the symbols that we are using in data flow diagram. The first one represents the process. This oval shape, it denotes the process in the DFT that is used to transform the incoming input into the outgoing output. The second one is the open rectangle, that is representing the data storage. Then we have third one, this is the square. It represents the external entity, which is the source of the incoming data, from where our data is coming. And the last one, the arrow, it representing the flow of data inside the system. So all these symbols we are using in the DFT to represent the information flow graphically. Now the next topic is data dictionary. What is the meaning of this term data dictionary? Dictionary means the storage system, or you can say it's a kind of repository that is storing the meaning of something or meaning of some word. So similarly, in case of database also, data dictionary is kind of repository which is storing the data about the data, and this data about the data is also known as metadata. So in simple terms, we can define it that this data dictionary, it is holding all the description about the data that we are entering into the database. For example, I have created a table in the database, and this table includes name, roll number, class, fields names, right? So if in that case, what will be the data types of each field, and what will be the constraints that will apply to the table? So all these things are described in the data dictionary, and it stores all the details, all the description about how the data is flowing in the entire system. What will be the source, what will be the process, where the data will go and store. So all these things, these are maintained by the data dictionary. Now next we'll talk about the components of data dictionary. The first one is data element. Data element, you can say like a building blocks for all the data that is stored in the database system, or you can say, for example, in a table we have name, roll number. So all these fields, these are the data elements. We can consider them as a data elements. And these data elements, they consist of the following terms. Like first one is data name, that what unique name we are giving to the data item. It is each element is referred by its name. so it will be easy for us to recognize that particular element. Then the second one is data description. It is the brief description of what that element is representing. Then third one is aliases. Aliases are nothing but the synonyms that we are using. Synonyms means the other names that we can give to that element. Then the next one is length. Length, it identifies that what is the number of spaces that we required for each data item and how much space it will acquire in the memory. Then the last one is data value. Data value means it specifies that what value is given to that particular element. So these are the components of the data elements. Next one is we talk about data structure. Data structure, it describes all the data items that are present in the database, that how they are related to each other. It also represents the data flows and the data stores. So all these things, that for example, we take an example like we have an expression that is x equal to a plus b. So this expression, the meaning of this expression will be x consists of data elements a and b. So like this, it represents all the meaning of the symbols, so that it become easy for us to recognize that particular item. Next we will discuss the structure chart. Structure chart is the hierarchical representation of system which partitions the system into black boxes. What do you mean by this black box? Black box is something where we know the functionality, but the inner details, that how this process is made or how this product is developed, we do not know all these details. In this, the components are read from top to bottom and left to right. So what does it mean? It means that this structure chart, it is a graphical representation of the entire system, and in this we are treating the system as a black box where the functionality is known to the user, that how it is performing, but does not know the internal details about the designing process. And the entire system is partitioned into simple modules, and therefore they are forming a kind of a hierarchy of these component modules. And this structure chart, it also represent that how these modules, they are interacting with each other, and how these modules, they are related to each other, what is the relationship between these modules, and how the information is being passed between these modules. So all these details, they are shown by this structure chart. So whenever we talk about, like, we are decomposing the entire system into small interacting units, we mean or we'll be able to do it with the help of these structure charts only. And as you can see in the figure also, this is a hierarchical format of a structure chart, in which the root level, that means the entire system, how it is divided into interacting modules, and how these interacting modules are further divided into sub modules. So this is forming a kind of hierarchy between these modules. Now the next strategy is the pseudocode. Pseudocode is a system description in short English-like phrases describing the function. It uses keyword and indentation. Pseudocodes are used as replacement for flowcharts, and it decreases the amount of documentation required. That means these pseudocode, these are the notations that can be used during the designing phases or during the detailed designing phases, and most of these pseudocodes, they are used by the designer, which are used to describe that what will be the characteristics of the system, and they describe these characteristics using these simple and short English languages phrases that are structured by the keywords, like they use if then else while doing the coding, and they use the while or do loops. So all these are the English phrases that they are used by the designer while writing the codes and while doing the detailed designing phases. So this was all about the function oriented design and how we create the designing process using the function oriented strategies. Now we will talk about the object oriented design. In object oriented design, it works around the entities and their characteristics instead of functions involved in the software system. This strategy focuses on entities and its characteristics, and these objects, they are the independent entities. These objects have their attributes and behavior. Each object maintains its own state and a defined set of operations which operate on that state. An individual object is an instance of a class. That means what we have discussed in function oriented design, that it works by the process of defining all the functions and decomposing the entire system into simple modules or simple units, which are known as the functions, and we are following the top down approach. But in case of object oriented design, we are not focusing on the functions, but we are focusing on the real world entities, which are known as the objects. And in this object oriented design, the entire system, it is viewed as a collection of objects, or you can say the collection of entities. By entities we mean that the objects that exist in the real world. For example, you can say any person, any chair, any car, any object, any book, all these are the objects because they exist in the real world. And every object, or you can say every entity, they possess some properties or they possess some behavior which are known as the attributes. So in this, for example, you can take an example of a library management system. In this library management system, every library representative, they are considered as a separate object, and each of them are having their data and functions to operate on these defined data. So in object oriented design, we are focusing on the objects or the entities that exist in the real world. Now these are the basic strategies of object oriented design, and we will talk about each one of them in detail one by one. The first one is the objects. So as we have already discussed, that objects are the real world entities that are involved in the designing process. For example, you can take an example of a person, a student, a teacher, a car, a chair. All these are the real world entities, and all these are referred as objects. So every object, every entity, they has some attributes and they has some methods to perform on these attributes. For example, if we talk about a student, then student is an entity, and student name, student ID, student address, all these are the attributes that are recognizing that particular entity. So these entities, they are recognized by their properties which are possessed by them. Then the second, we have the classes. Classes means these are the collection of an object, and it defines all the attributes which an object can have and all the methods the object can have, and it represents all the functionalities of the object. For example, if we talk about that there is a fruit class. So in that fruit class, what are the various instances? So instances means the objects. So in fruit class, we have various objects like mango, apple, grapes. So these are the single entities, these are the objects, and collectively they are known as the class. Then the next concept, we have the encapsulation. Encapsulation means in this the data and the objects, they are together with their functions and methods, they are together wrapped up into a single unit. For example, if we have a class, for example BCA, we have a class, then and all the students of this class are the objects, and when we combine all the objects with their class, it becomes a complete class. That means we are wrapping up the entire objects together with their data structures and together with their methods into a class and forming a single unit. So this is the process of encapsulation. Then the next is the inheritance. Inheritance means it is the ability of a particular class to extend or to use the functionality or to inherit the functionalities of another class. And in this we have the concept of a child class and a parent class, and all these, they can override the functionality or they can inherit the functionality from one class to another. And because of this, they can import and reuse all the variables and methods from their immediate superclasses, and this makes it easier to define the specific class and to create the generalized classes from the specific ones. And it also allows the reusability of code. So the designer, they need not to write the code again and again, but instead they can just inherit from their drive class. Then the next concept is the polymorphism. In this, polymorphism means that where we have different functions, or you can say we have different methods that are performing this similar task, but they vary in their arguments, or they have different parameters or different arguments. So we can assign the same name to all the methods that are performing the similar task. So this process is known as polymorphism. Now we will discuss the advantages and disadvantages of this object oriented design. First, let us focus on advantages. The first one is it is easy to understand. That means all the programs, they are easy to understand and maintain, and with the help of the all these properties like inheritance and polymorphism, encapsulation, the programming becomes very much easier. Then the second, we have the code reusability. In this, with the help of the inheritance mechanism, we'll be able to reuse the code, or we'll be able to inherit the functions or inherit the variables, inherit the methods between the classes. Then the third one is the quick development. That means the development of the programs is very much easier and very much faster, because it allows the parallel development of classes in object oriented design. Then the last one we have, it models the real world very well, because it considers all the objects or all the entities that are representing the real world things. Then the next we have the disadvantages, like it is sometimes becomes very much complex, or the design becomes very much tricky, and it requires the appropriate knowledge, and also the developer should have the appropriate knowledge so that they can do the proper planning and designing for the object oriented programming. Then the second is classes, they sometimes tend to be overgeneralized. Because of this the problem occurs, and because of this the complication of the project or complication of the development process becomes very much difficult to handle. And the next one is that in this the programmer, they needs proper skills, they need proper training, such as that of designing or programming and thinking in terms of objects and classes, and doing the programming in terms of objects, and all allowing all the mechanism, and using all the mechanism like inheritance, polymorphism. So it requires a proper knowledge as well as proper training, which becomes a typical, or which becomes sometimes a expensive process. So these are the important questions that you all have to prepare based on today's session. The first one is explain the designing strategies of function oriented design. In this you have to explain first what is a function oriented design, and then you have to explain all the designing strategies like DFT, data dictionary, structure chart and pseudocode that we have already discussed. Then the second question is explain how object oriented approach is useful in modeling real world entities. In this you have to explain how this is beneficial, or how this is advantageous or more useful than function oriented, and what are the various strategies that we use in this object oriented approach. Students, now it's time to end this session here only. I hope you have understood all the concepts of object oriented and function oriented, and after this session you will be able to differentiate between the function oriented and object oriented design and their strategies. And in the next session we will continue with the software metrics and measurements. Till then, you all take care of yourselves and keep learning. Thank you so much for watching.